Good morning. I'd like to call this voting meeting of the House Labor Industry Committee to order. Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins.
Here.
Boyd.
Here by designation.
Brennan.
Here by designation.
Deloso.
Here by designation.
Donahue. Giroux. Green. Haddock. McNeil.
Here by designation.
O'Mara. Piscitano.
Here by designation.
Rossi.
Here by designation.
Scott. Young. McKenzie.
Here.
Cooper. Diorsi. Ecker.
Here by designation.
Flood. Gleim. Ham.
Here by designation.
Jones.
Here by designation.
Kiefer. Rowe. Stambaugh. Oh, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The first bill we will consider is House Bill 2566, printers numbers 3617, sponsored by Representative Haddock. Is there a motion to consider House Bill 2566? Motion made by Representative Mara, second by Representative Gerard. Ryan, please explain the bill.
House Bill 2566 modernizes the Sign Language Interpreter and Transliterator State Registration Act to permit alternative education pathways, restructures testing and educational requirements, requires an annual review of approved alternative pathway programs, requires video interpreters to be registered, and amends existing exemptions.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize the prime sponsor of House Bill 2566, Representative Haddock, for brief remarks on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2566 modernizes the Sign Language Interpreter and Transliterator State Registration Act, Act 27 of 2004, to align with state law with current interpreting and transliterator practices. Act 27 was first passed in 2004 and was last amended in 2010, but it has not kept up with the rapid changes in the community and in the interpreting profession. Unfortunately, Pennsylvanians who are deaf, hard of hearing, and blind deaf are facing severe shortages of qualified interpreters. This bill, intended to ensure that all interpreting and transliteration services are performed by certified persons with adequate knowledge in interpreting and transliterating, and that these services can be easily accessed for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, and blind deaf. The language contained in House Bill 2566 is the result of several months of discussion between stakeholders, including those in the sign language interpreting community and the Department of Labor and Industry's Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and I ask the members for an affirmative vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I will now like to offer Amendment A05679. Ryan, please explain the amendment.
Amendment A05679 changes the term physician's office to medical setting in the law in order to remain consistent with the language in House Bill 2566.
Thank you. Representative Scott makes a motion to adopt Amendment A05679 and second by Representative Green. Is there any comments on the amendment? All right. Is there any discussion? Any negative votes on the amendment? All right. Well, seeing or hearing no opposition, Amendment A05679 is amended into the bill. Is there any discussion on the bill? Representative Kiefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to solve with this. So I did hear the comment saying we're facing shortages right now with interpreters, but we want to reinforce the registration and require the certification. So why would we be creating more barriers? This was something that was new to me, so just talking to we have a big, we have a sign language mass every Sunday at 9 at my church, and I was just talking to some of the individuals, trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve with this. Just with the whole certification, registration, that type of thing, it seems like it's another hurdle or barrier to entry if you have people that are already sign language interpreters. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's my understanding that this has been worked on with stakeholder groups over the years, and this is one of the recommendations that they want to see done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just trying to figure out how that actually will help us get more interpreters.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the legislative process, I mean, it seems that this bill is either similar or identical. I know we did just adopt an amendment here in committee to SB 1274, which came over to this committee in July. And with the short amount of session days left, I think if we wanted to achieve something like this, obviously it's an important topic, I think it might be better to move the Senate bill. Just my thoughts. I don't know if you have any feedback, but again, time is running short here this legislative session. We do want to help this community. So, I mean, the bill that is before us from the Senate that came over in July seems like it would have been a better avenue to get it done, get it to the governor, and help this community.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I just would like to thank the prime sponsor for introducing this important bill and urge the members to support it. Are there any negative votes on the bill? Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes by designation.
Brennan, Deloso, Donahue, Gerald, Green, Haddock, McNeil,
Yes by designation.
O'Mara,
Yes.
Piscitano,
Yes by designation.
Rozzi,
Yes by designation.
Scott, Young, McKenzie,
Yes.
Cooper, Diorsi, Ecker,
Yes by designation.
Flood, Gleim, Ham,
Yes by designation.
Jones,
Yes by designation.
Kiefer,
No.
Rowe,
Okay.
Oh, okay, then yes by designation.
Stambaugh. The bill passes.
Thank you. House Bill 2566 is reported as amended from the House and Labor Industry Committee. All right, moving on. So the last bill that we have on our agenda is House Bill 2548, printers number 3586, sponsored by Representative O'Mara. Is there a motion to consider House Bill 2548? Motion made by Representative Donahue and second by Representative Green. Ryan, can you please explain the bill?
House Bill 2548 requires employers to provide their employees with earned paid sick time, creates notice, posting, and record-keeping requirements, provides protection from retaliation, establishes a complaint and enforcement process, creates penalties, and grants powers and responsibilities to the Department of Labor and Industry.
Thank you. I would like to offer Amendment A05707. Ryan, please explain the amendment.
Amendment A05707 guts and replaces House Bill 2548 with language that requires employers to permit their employees to earn 1 hour of paid leave for every 40 hours worked. The amendment also establishes a small business grant program to help employers implement the act. Finally, the amendment creates enforcement procedures, establishes an administrative penalty, and permits a private cause of action.
Thank you. Representative Brennan makes a motion to adopt Amendment A05707 and second by Representative Gerard. Is there any comments on the amendment? All right, seeing none, is there any no votes on the amendment? Okay. Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes by designation.
Brennan, Deloso, Donahue, Gerald, Green, Haddock, McNeil,
Yes by designation.
O'Mara, Piscitano,
Yes by designation.
Rozzi,
Yes by designation.
Scott, Young, McKenzie,
No.
Cooper, Diorsi, Ecker,
No by designation.
Flood, Gleim, Ham,
No by designation.
Jones,
No by designation.
Kiefer, Rowe,
No by designation.
Stanball. The amendment passes.
Thank you. Minority Chairman McKenzie would like to offer Amendment A05686. Andrew, please explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amendment A05686, sponsored by Chairman McKenzie, inserts language that would require employers to use the E-Verify system for the verification of an employee's authorization to work in the United States. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Motion adopted by Representative Flood for A05686, second by Representative Dorsey. Are there any comments on the amendment? I'll turn it over to Chairman McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we've discussed in this committee a number of times during this legislative session, I think that it is important that we have employers only hiring individuals who are legally authorized to work here in the United States. E-Verify is a federal program which would allow for the easy verification of those individuals' status to work here in the country. This program is voluntary, but in some cases here in the Commonwealth, we've actually made it mandatory, and we've done that in a overwhelming bipartisan fashion. So I think that this is something that does have strong support. I think we should continue to include this in legislation as we move forward through this Labor and Industry Committee. So would encourage a yes vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Well, I would urge all members to oppose this amendment, considering that E-Verify is already a part of the structure. Jonathan, take the roll.
Dawkins,
No.
Boyd,
No by designation.
Brennan, Deloso, Donahue, Gerald, Green, Haddock, McNeil,
No, and all the rest of the Democrats voting in the negative.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Cooper, Diorsi, Ecker,
Yes by designation.
Flood, Gleim, Ham,
Yes by designation.
Jones,
Yes by designation.
Kiefer, Rowe,
Yes by designation.
Stanball. The amendment fails.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize the prime sponsor of House Bill 2548, Representative O'Mara, for brief remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, colleagues. My legislation, House Bill 2548, as amended, guarantees all workers employed in the Commonwealth can earn paid leave. Under this bill, workers would earn 1 hour of paid leave for every 40 hours worked and could use up to 40 hours of leave per year. This earned leave could be used for any reason: an illness of the worker or their family member, an important appointment, or a personal reason. Having the ability to earn and use paid leave means a person doesn't have to choose between a paycheck and going to work or caring for a sick loved one. It means a parent can afford to take a day off work to chaperone their child's field trip. This bill also creates a small business grant program to help employers implement the act. Our Commonwealth's workers have waited too long to have guaranteed access to earned paid leave. In 2011, Connecticut was the first state to pass an earned sick leave bill, and since then, nearly 20 other states and numerous local governments have enacted some type of earned paid leave law. My bill, House Bill 2548, ensures workers are better able to take care of themselves and less likely to get their workers or loved ones sick. I urge members to support this important legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the bill? Representative Glahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in opposition to this bill, but I have a question. Under the Small Business Grant Program, how is small business defined?
That will likely be determined by the department through the regulations. However, the language does require the department to consider a business income limit cap for employers applying for the grant, since there are some businesses that are quite profitable and have or only have a few employees, whereas our other businesses that have sort of thin margins. So to say that an employer that has only 3 employees versus 100 doesn't actually speak to their ability to implement the Act's requirements.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe that the state should be telling businesses how to run their business. We continue under this majority in the House to create a nanny state. And businesses have their own HR handbooks already in place that best fit their businesses. We should be encouraging nonprofits to expand their help in this area and leave it to the people and not the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Dorsey.
So the grant program for small businesses that was inserted in the gut and replace amendment, to me, is like admission that it will be extremely difficult for particularly small businesses to comply with this. For that reason, and because it's a heavy-handed mandate and it gives authority to the department, I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, a question for the maker. So with the amendment that was adopted on page 3 of the Dawkins Amendment, it requires the same rate of pay for employees that they received during the previous week. So how does that work for tipped workers?
Well, considering that is a part of a Dawkins amendment, I think we should actually direct that question to Ryan.
So the regular rate of pay is defined in the bill and references the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, which sets out how that is calculated.
So it would include tips or would not include tips?
From my understanding, it depends on the actual structure of the paycheck. As we know, tips vary from week to week. So in order to actually calculate the actual standard, I think they're going to have to come up with some type of, algorithm they're going to use for tip wage workers. This is one of the reasons why we're trying to move minimum wage provisions in this committee and through this House and through this body, so we can have a more clear definition of how folks are going to be receiving pay on a predictability schedule versus on a variable schedule.
Thank you. For the maker also, I've received a number of letters in opposition to this legislation from a variety of stakeholder groups. Is anybody in favor of this legislation?
Yes, absolutely. There has been I am a part of a coalition of stakeholders here in the state that have been working on this, including organizations in labor and organizations that advocate for workers. And to be clear, someone mentioned the job of the state. I would argue that it is the job of the state to protect Pennsylvania workers and ensure that they are not being taken advantage of by anyone and that they have dignity and access to paid leave when they need it. It also protects Pennsylvania workers from sending someone who's sick to work. I don't know about you, but I have worked for jobs where I had to go to work when I was sick because if I didn't, I would lose my job or not get paid. It's not a tenable situation, and COVID highlighted that for us and why public health is an important priority. But regardless, yes, there are many, many stakeholders who are supportive of this legislation.
Thank you. I just bring that up because as members of this committee, the Republican members, I'm not aware of any stakeholder group that has actually come out in support of this. It seems to me that for the most part, this committee has run very partisan legislation this legislative session with no input from the minority committee, no input from a broad array of stakeholders across the spectrum that would be impacted by this legislation. And it's a really bad way to legislate. It's just a terrible way to legislate. If we actually want to impact positive change for workers, we should work in a bipartisan fashion. This is an issue that I think we should be discussing. But we have seen this repeatedly, time and time again, this legislative session, where there are issues that we would be interested and willing to work with you on, and nothing is done to reach out to different stakeholder groups. Nothing is done to reach out to the minority. It's passed on partisan lines, and at the end of the day, we end up with nothing being done to help Pennsylvania workers. Absolutely nothing. That's what's going to come out of this unfortunate session for this House Labor and Industry Committee. Absolutely nothing to help Pennsylvania workers. In fact, by voting down the amendment to require E-Verify, we are putting illegal immigrants above Pennsylvania workers. They're going to be taking Pennsylvania jobs away from American citizens, and this majority votes down E-Verify every single time. Again, putting the status of illegal immigrants and those individuals above Pennsylvanians and American citizens, the ones who we should be standing up for. So time and time again, this committee has failed, and this legislation is another example of that. For those reasons, we should be voting no on this legislation. Happy to work with the maker of the bill and the chairman on topics like this and many other things, but they never want to reach out. They never want to do that work. We've been waiting for 2 years now to help Pennsylvania workers, and unfortunately, that has not occurred in this committee.
Representative Young.
Thank you so much. I want to say this is such an amazing time because what Minority Chairman is explaining is the beauty of democracy. And in the beauty of democracy, we have our opinions and we have our perspectives. And so, although I disagree with a lot of the comments that were made, he is still able to be shared because this is a democracy. But as it relates to the particular legislation we're discussing, without going down a rabbit hole, I want to understand we're talking about time, right? Timed work for these employees and for them to be acknowledged for the time that they work. We're not talking about types of work. Is that correct? Is it the times that's work? So as it relates to the legislation, as I understand it, we are looking to make sure that these employees who worked physical hours in an establishment have are able to be recognized by getting sick time and others such times like that. Is that correct? Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm clear about that, and I'm a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, well, seeing none, I will take the liberty to, again, commend the maker of this bill, but also to provide facts in a factless world. The minority chairman sat here and blatantly lied about not having diversity in opinions in this committee when himself has bills that ran through this committee. There's been members of the Republican minority party who have bills run through this committee. Ask yourself last session how many Democratic bills ran through this committee. It has been a stark difference of leadership. We believe in the idea of ideas when they make sense. What we do not tolerate is the rhetoric and the racist tropes of immigrants taking jobs from Americans. We're going to stop that, and we're going to stop that now. There's no low-wage job anyone's fighting over. Let me make that very clear. When we talk about the immigration or immigrant population, the jobs that are being filled by immigrants are not jobs that any one of us are looking to take or any other American are looking to take. They are normally the bottom paid jobs in our economy. But we have this notion that we should create a boogeyman in the immigrant population. They're coming to eat our dogs and cats and steal our low-wage jobs. It is ridiculous. It is beneath you to even mention that in this committee. We are above that. We should try really hard to live up to our oath and be the best kind of individuals in this Commonwealth. We should not stoop low to those degrading comments in this committee or in this building. You are better than that. So we should stop doing that. This committee is about doing the work. What we're not going to do is the nonsense. We all know that we already have a process in terms of verification. We know this, but we continue to do this because we believe we're going to win some type of cheap political shots. We are about doing the work. And I am just sick and tired of hearing about it. And please stop bringing it up in this committee. Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes by designation.
Brennan, Deloso, Donahue, Jarrell, Green, Haddock, McNeil,
Yes, and all Democrats voting in the affirmative.
McKenzie,
No.
Cooper,
No by designation.
Diorsi, Ecker,
No by designation.
Flood, Gleim, Ham,
No by designation.
Jones,
No by designation.
Kiefer, Rowe,
No by designation.
Stambaugh. The bill passes.
Thank you. House Bill 2548 is reported as amended from House and Labor Industry Committee. And seeing no other business before this committee, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.